Hi guys, Editing Jess here. I am currently editing the video you are watching and I realized I shot the entire thing out of focus. Unfortunately, I don't have time to refilm this, so I'm gonna do my best to fix it in post. However, it's probably not gonna look like the rest of my videos, so I apologize. I have not made this big of a mistake in so long. I'm so mad at myself, but that is why this video is gonna look a little different visually than my other videos. I was able to fix my other video, so this will be the only video that looks like this, hopefully, but thank you guys for all your support and sorry for the video quality.
Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my September TBR. Alright guys, I am so excited for this TBR. So September is my all-time favorite month just because one, it is my birthday month and I love my birthday, and two, it is the start of fall and I love everything about fall. I love that the weather gets a little bit cooler, you get to wear more layers. My house already smells like a pumpkin patch, much to my husband's dismay, but I love everything pumpkin. So I am just thriving this month, and on top of all of that, it is also the start of the Phantom of the Opera Readathon that was put together by Maggie from the channel Maggie's Books and Stuff and her patrons. So it is a month-long gothic romance-inspired readathon, and I am so excited to be one of the co-hosts. So I will leave my announcement video along with Maggie's announcement video down in the description below. I feel like Maggie just goes into more details about the Discord, how to score points, and things like that, and it should be so much fun. So the way I'm going to break this TBR down is the first half is going to be like the fantasy romances that I want to get to. The second half will be all of the books I need to read for this readathon because I'm one of the captains of Team Opera Owners, so we are mostly reading age gap and billionaire romances. So I have quite a list. I am very competitive and I don't want to let my team down, so I'm so excited to get to these books. And also, if you've noticed the shirt I'm wearing, the Readathon does have merch that was created by Maggie. So I believe there are two different shirt/sweatshirt options, and then there's some really fun bookmarks. So I will also leave that link down in the description below if you want to pick up some merch for the Readathon. With all of that out of the way, if you are unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these books. Alright guys, I would normally start this TBR off by sharing the next book in our Patreon Throne of Glass read-along. However, we have finished the Throne of Glass series, so I'm actually going to be taking a month off in September just to focus on the Phantom of the Opera readathon, and then in October, my Patreons have voted, and we will be reading the Legend of Thesmar series. I am so pumped. I've had this series on my TBR for quite a while. I know so many people absolutely love it. So starting in October, we will be reading one book a month and then having a live show at the end of every month. And then I think it ends up ending in either February or January. But either way, it's gonna be so much fun. So I will have my Patreon linked down in the description below. But remember, this is not starting until October. And moving on to my Patreon fantasy romance pick for September. If you're unfamiliar with my patrons are able to vote on a book they would like to read in September, and then we end up buddy reading it on Discord, and then we have a live show at the end of the month, and it has been so fun so far. So I am very happy because I will say it was neck and neck for a while, but The Veiled Kingdom by Renee ended up winning, and honestly, I'm happy this was selected because it'll give me the push to read this. I've been saying I want to read this. The audio, by the way, will be coming out September 10th, but I was a little bit nervous because I didn't love Holly Renee's previous series, but I've heard this is fantastic. So as soon as that audiobook drops, I will be reading this. This apparently is following a princess who ends up fleeing her tyrannical, cruel father and is found by this rebel group. However, they have no idea who she is, and then I believe she has a romance with one of the rebel leader's son, Dacker. However, she's worried that if he finds out her true identity, she might end up being killed. And it goes from there, but I am so excited. So this will be one of the first books I read in September. And next up, I will finally be reading Fear the Flames. This is an adult fantasy romance that apparently has dragons, found family, a heist. Everyone says it's amazing. I have been wanting to read this for so long, and the audiobook is finally dropping. I'm pretty sure it's September 17th, I believe. So I cannot wait. From what I remember, the story is following this girl who I believe was a princess, but then she ended up starting her own kingdom in secret, and now she needs to get revenge on her father in order to save her people. So she teams up with her father's enemy and I think there's a heist situation. I don't even know if there's romance. I am just so excited to read this book. So as soon as that audiobook drops, I will be reading Fear the Flames. And next up, I want to reread Lady of Darkness and then continue with this series. So honestly, I don't know how far I'll get in the series because of this readathon, but in October, I definitely want to try to complete the Lady of Darkness series because I really want to have it done before book 3 in the Legacy series by the same author comes out. But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with Lady of Darkness, we are following Scarlet, and she is one of 3 adopted daughters of the Assassin Lord. So since she was very young, she was trained on how to kill, and her main motivation is she wants to get revenge on the Fae Fire Prince that killed her mother. So the Assassin Lord has kind of been like hiding where the Fire Prince is located and using it kind of to control Scarlet. And then when Scarlet ends up displeasing the Assassin Lord, she is sent to this kingdom essentially until she can learn to behave. But while she's there, she starts to realize that children are going missing, so her quest for vengeance is on hold, and now she has to uncover all of these mysteries. And I loved this first book. It reminded me a little bit of From Blood and Ash, and it was just really, really enjoyable. I've already talked about the Legacy series way too much on this channel, but it is my favorite read of the year. Highly recommend, and I cannot wait to read this series. And last up is Hills of Shivers and Shadows by Pam Godwin. This is a dark Why Choose romance, and it has been on my TBR for quite some time, but the audiobook is dropping at the end of September, and I am ready. I have heard this book is super, super dark, and to go in prepared, and I'm so ready. So I believe this is following a girl named Frankie who ends up being kidnapped and taken to this isolated Alaskan cabin where she is stuck with these 4 guys that harbor some dark secrets and some twisted desires. And I've heard nothing but good things, but I have had a lot of people tell me that this is like super, super dark. Also, if any of you have read this, does it have age gap or billionaire? Because I really don't know if I can read it during the readathon, but I'm going to try to find a way. So let me know, is there anything that could seem like an age gap or billionaire in this book? Because it is rather chunky and I feel like it's going to take me a while. But anyway, this is another book I will be reading in September. All right, and the rest of the books on this TBR are for the Phantom of the Opera Readathon. So they either feature age gap or billionaire, or they're gothic. And I was actually able to find some fantasy romance that met this criteria. So I asked over on my Instagram for you guys to send me recs. You did not disappoint. I have so many awesome books that I am so excited to check out that I had never heard of before. So first up, we actually have Commanding Flame and Shield. I'd like to say a special thank you to Leanne for telling me about this because I had no idea there was a fantasy romance that actually featured a billionaire investor. So that's perfect. But we're following this investor, I think his name is August, and he keeps having these very prophetic type dreams, and then they seem to be becoming real when this legendary warrior shows up and says that she is trying to hunt demons in order to save humanity, and I think it might be a romance between them. But I've had my eye on this book for quite some time, so I am so excited to pick it up during the readathon. And next up we have A Dark and Drowning Tide. This is an adult gothic fantasy romance, and I believe we're following a folklorist named Lorelei, and she ends up going on an expedition with 6 other nobles in order to find a spring that will somehow secure the king's power. I believe it is a magical spring. And then the leader of this expedition ends up being murdered, and Lorelei is now in charge and has to discover who the murderer is. And it goes from there, but it sounds really good. I actually just Googled Gothic Fantasy Romance, and this book popped up, and the cover was stunning. And I don't know, I just like the vibes. It sounds really cool, and the audiobook will be dropping on September 17th. And next up, a lot of you recommended Filthy Rich Vampire. So I recognize the cover, but I've never read this book, and I had no idea what it was about, but it sounds really fun. We're following this very rich vampire who needs a fake girlfriend in order to escape some sort of like arranged marriage type thing. And he ends up finding this human girl who has a lot of medical debt. I believe her mother is dying or has been in the hospital. And they end up making a deal where she will fake be his girlfriend and he will pay off all of her debt. And it goes from there. So I will say, I'm pretty sure this has both age gap and billionaire. I'm assuming the vampire is probably hundreds of years old and the human is a little bit younger. That is why I love the fact they gave me age gap, because I feel like most fantasy romance, I can make it age gap. But anyway, I am very excited to read that during the readathon. And next up, quite a few of you recommended Seventh Circle by Tate James. Now, I've been wanting to give Tate James another try. I read her Madison Kate series and wasn't a huge fan, so hopefully I will really enjoy this one. Now, I have no idea if this features age gap or billionaire. I am totally trusting you guys because so many people recommended it, but I didn't look too in-depth in the plot because I didn't want to spoil it. but I know this is a dark white shoes romance we're following. I believe it's a woman named Hades, and 5 years ago she had massacred all of the Timberwolves, which I assume are a gang, and now she's kind of running things, and it's her relationship with, I guess, a few different guys. Hopefully one's an age gap or one's a billionaire. But anyway, I'm very interested to see if I like this more than the Madison Kate series. And next up is a rec from Jen from the Book Refuge, and she never steers me wrong, so I know I'm gonna love this. It is P.S. You're Intolerable. So I believe we're following this girl who's an assistant or a PA for this really wealthy man, and he never really notices her. That is until she is 7 months pregnant and needs a place to stay. So her boss ends up letting her stay with him, and apparently this is Grumpy Sunshine, Forced Proximity, and Curvy FMC. So it sounds so good. So that is another book I will be reading during the readathon. And the last few books on this TBR are rereads. However, age gap is one of my favorite tropes of all time, so I am so pumped to reread some of these. First up, we have Gothikana, which is a gothic, forbidden, fantasy romance. We are following Corvinia, and after the death of her mother, she receives this letter telling her she's been accepted into Vedmore University. And when she gets there, she finds out it's this secluded castle that has super gothic vibes and is super creepy, and it's run by this guy named Vlad, who will be her professor. So it is their romance. So it's a forbidden romance, age gap between the professor and the student, and I'm pretty sure he actually owns the castle, so it might count as billionaire, might not. But anyway, I absolutely love this book. It has the perfect gothic vibes for fall, so highly recommend. Next up is my favorite age gap of all time. It is Little Dove by Layla Frost. I absolutely adore this book, and it features billionaire and age gap, so it is perfect for this readathon. We are following our main character, whose father is a gambler, and at the beginning of the story, she is, I think, trying to get a snack from the pantry, and she hears a knock on the door, so she hides in the pantry, and then she hears gunshots. Well, when she opens the pantry, she finds out that her father was just killed by Massimo, who then kidnaps her, takes her back to his huge billionaire mansion, and treats her amazing, and gives her everything she could possibly want, even an education. And then when she finally turns 18, I don't think I mentioned this, I think she's 16 or 17 at the start, when she comes of age, he says, hey, you can either go live your life, I will pay for everything, don't worry about it, or you can stay here and we could have a little bit of a romance type thing. It is BDSM, check trigger warnings, but I love this book. I love this book so much. So highly recommend, and I will definitely be reading this in September. And last up is one of my favorite Pam Godwin books of all time. It is Dark Notes. Now I will say, definitely check trigger warnings. There's some very upsetting things that happen on page. It is very dark. Also, I will spoil this for you. There is an animal death. It happens at the very end of the book, so you'll know when it's about to happen if you just want to skip that part. I will always ruin animal death for you, just because it is something I don't want to read, so I figure most of you guys probably don't want to read it either. But anyway, either way, this book is absolutely amazing. So we're following this girl named Ivory, and she lives a horrible life. Like, her family really just treats her horribly. And her one, like, shining light is the fact that she loves to play the piano. So she's actually going to this prestigious school that she really can't afford because she has a piano scholarship. And at the start of the new term, she meets her new professor, who is this very attractive gentleman who instantly kind of takes a liking to Ivory and starts to realize that her home life might not be okay. So he ends up having her stay with him. It's their romance, so it's very forbidden, professor-student, obviously. And it is just, he is very rich. I don't know if he's a billionaire, so I don't know if it'll count, but it might. I'm going to check with Maggie. But overall, this book was so good. I just loved their romance and the way the main guy really takes care of Ivory and just helps her heal, and I love this book. So this will be another one that I read in September. All right, guys, those are most of the books I plan on reading in September. Please join us for the Phantom of the Opera readathon. It is going to be so much fun. I just cannot wait for September 1st. And I'd like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Erin, Leslie, and Kat. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who watched this video. Now, I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.